Hey guys, and welcome back to the Curious Curators. I'm Hope.
And I'm Lindsay.
And we are quarantining, as you can probably tell, since we are recording this in two separate places.
Yeah, so, COVID reaches every corner of every rural county.
It really does. Rural county like Bradley County, Tennessee, which is where I'm recording from. If you can see our setups, you would really love this because I just have boxes piled up on top of each other so I can be on the same level as everything else. It's great.
I do lots of online recordings and live streams and things like that, so I actually have a pretty nice setup. Except you could see my door from this angle, but I don't really feel like moving.
I don't have a desk or a table. I have three computers around me on the floor. Gotta love quarantine.
I've got a giant desk, I've got my computer, I've got my TV screen, which is streaming Hope right now. I've got a ring light.
I have a ring light as well. This is a barrel of fun. I'm so glad that this is what we get to do leading up to Christmas week. So this podcast will come out just a couple days before Christmas, and we're in our houses with alone. Well, Lindsay is not alone. Lindsay has two furry companions.
Yes, I have two cats and one of them is meowing at the door right now, so at some point you might see her hopping up there. Uh, yep, there she
There he is.
goes. Uh, because she gets to go on walks and she doesn't realize that it's raining right now, so we're not going on a walk.
I love it. You know what? The cat content is really what I'm here for. So this is fun.
Yeah, I think most people are here for cat content.
That's the entire internet in 2020. So
That's the entire internet since the beginning of forever.
that's actually true.
Iken has cheeseburger was like the first meme.
I used to love Doge, the dog that was
Oh
always
yeah, I still love Doge.
same actually. Well, I guess we can get started from our rambling. So, like I said, this is Christmas week, and today we're gonna give you a little Christmas themed podcast, and it is going to be about the history of Santa Claus.
Yay!
Clearly, I'm imitating the guy that says, "Let's get ready to rumble," with my awful announcer voice. All
I'm
right.
just glad you didn't do it as loud as he does because I'm definitely wearing headphones right now.
If it would disturb my neighbors, I would. But I have respect for your ears, so I will not do that. So, Santa Claus will be coming down your chimney pretty soon if you have a chimney. Does he come in a window if you don't have a chimney?
Makes him sound like a burglar.
I mean, like, he does come in and just eat your food and drink your milk and leave, but
Maybe he magically comes through vents.
maybe. I do know that in a Cajun night before Christmas, he has alligators instead of reindeer.
He changes out when he goes to Louisiana.
He does. I mean, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, I mean the reindeer need a break.
And they're probably really warm with all that fur because I'm sure it's about 100 degrees down there.
Yeah, so when he goes to Louisiana, he drops off the reindeer, switches to alligators.
Yeah. And they have very Cajun names like Boudreaux.
Yes. Well, obviously.
That's actually when I was in school, they used to read us a Cajun night before Christmas. And like instead of "'Twas the Night Before Christmas." So
Right.
God love Louisiana, honestly, man. But anyway, Santa Claus is, I would say, a worldwide phenomenon at this point. I mean, you can literally watch him on the news.
Oh yeah, like NORAD tracks him.
Yeah, which is kind of ridiculous, but like, I don't remember as a child ever like watching something like that or like waiting, but I remember as an adult that it's on. I didn't look up when that came into being.
I actually don't think I looked up when NORAD started tracking him either. But it does, but I don't ever remember like watching it.
No. No, I just know about it because they have
Yeah.
those like advertisements with the people and like the little sleigh, and you're like, But Santa, our good friend Santa, is pretty much like an old character. Um, he is based on Saint Nicholas, which some people do say Saint Nick or whatever, I guess.
Right.
So Saint Nicholas is a fourth century Greek bishop, and this is going to lead me to a segue. Why are we not surprised? Do you remember the Xena episode where it was Christmas and they had Santa Claus was like Santa Claus and he was a toy
Yes.
maker? That I looked that up for so long trying to see if that was like in any way based in fact. I could not find that it was, but
Well, I mean, he was a Greek Orthodox bishop, but he lived in Turkey.
yeah, which is, I mean, kind of like the larger Greek world in a way. Troy was in Turkey.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's like the least egregious thing that Xena did in, you know, considering how much history that series butchered. That's probably the least offensive.
Yeah, I mean that's very true. That
Still
just
love it though.
same like favorite show. But when they said that Saint Nicholas was, I said when they said like when I read, no one told me that Saint Nicholas was a fourth century Greek bishop. I was just shook. I was like, yes, of course he is. But he is also the basis for Father Christmas and Santa Claus. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Um, and there's also a theory that he could possibly be related to a Germanic deity called Woden.
Yeah, that's the basically the Low German version of the Norse god Odin. Um, or like it's Old Man Winter kind of thing. So, um, Scandinavian is considered, like Northern Germanic, and that would be more Southern Germanic is Woden. Like that would be Switzerland, Germany, and Austria, and those German speak the Low Countries.
All right.
So, but Woden is basically the other word for Odin.
Sometimes I don't put things together until it's so glaringly obvious that I don't understand how I didn't get it. But when you said Odin, I was like,
Huh.
oh, what a day. But his image didn't actually become popular in the US and Canada until the 1800s. Or the image that we know of Santa, I guess.
Yeah, can I talk a little bit more about the original Saint Nicholas?
Duh, of course you
Okay.
can.
So actually he Saint Nicholas, the figure, had inherited a fortune from his parents. But he decided instead of spending it, I suppose, he decided he was going to go into the church and become a bishop and things like that. So he gave away his wealth to the needy, and he was considered the patron saint of children, which makes sense, but he's also the patron saint of sailors. Supposedly he saves ships from storms at sea.
Okay.
Um, so if you have a storm at sea, Saint Nicholas is who you call upon.
And
Um,
look this up. Is he only an Orthodox saint or is he also a Catholic saint?
I'm not sure. It says Greek Orthodox.
Yeah, so Eastern. Yeah, I didn't look it up either. I assumed Greek Orthodox as well, but
And he died in the middle of the 4th century on December 6th. Um, but like you started talking about just a minute ago, everything else about him was kind of created or shaped later on by pagan beliefs because a lot of the Christmas traditions we know today is rooted in pagan beliefs as the Pope tried to synchronize or assimilate them together
right.
to bring more pagans into the fold of Christianity. And that's kind of how Woden comes in. Because Odin and Old Man Winter and Woden and them, they're the ones who bring in the Christmas season. Um, and they think that there might also be that this image might have been shaped a little bit by Thor as well. because he rode in an iron chariot that was pulled by the goats Gnasher and Cracker.
And that's
Um,
for the names.
and it might have influenced our images of Santa in his sleigh. Um, and the name Kris Kringle comes to us from the Germanic Christ Kindle, an angelic figure who gave gifts to deserving children. So
So,
that's why we have so many nicknames for Santa Claus.
and basically, it's based around giving gifts to children, not
Yes.
necessarily giving gifts to everyone. I was reading something that said that the custom of like Christmas gifts to children was kind of pushed by Martin Luther, famous for his 99 Theses that he nailed to the church door. And this was in order to bring the focus to Christ and not the saints, which seems strange if Saint Nicholas was the patron saint of children. But like, I never know how people's minds were working when they
Well,
were
and that might have also come that might also be part of the Christ Kindle
right.
because it's Christ in the name. And
Yeah,
it says he's an angelic figure, so that might have been something that Martin Luther was thinking about. Um, maybe an angel instead of a saint. Not sure, just speculation there.
yeah. I feel like I could never fully understand what Martin Luther was thinking, but to each his own.
I don't know what this figure from hundreds of years ago could possibly have been thinking.
No, sadly, no one's ever really told me. But I guess the next thing that I kind of was doing some research on was just Father Christmas in general.
Okay.
And we all know how much I love the Tudors.
Oh
So
God.
this Father Christmas actually kind of dates back to 16th century England and Henry VIII. And he didn't always wear red robes. He would wear red or green velvet robes trimmed with fur. And he was kind of the embodiment of good cheer, peace, joy, good food, good wine, and revelry. Which that reminds me of like Bacchus or Dionysus,
Yeah.
like the wine and revelry. The celebration of Father Christmas eventually moved to Christmas Day. And then there was, of course, a Victorian revival. There was a Victorian revival for nearly everything, I feel like. And he just kind of became this emblem of good cheer. I think that's kind of, he's like a jolly man with like red cheeks and he's always like laughing and smiling and everything. And one of the most famous illustrations is from John Leech, and it's the Ghost of Christmas Present from A Christmas Carol, which I guess is like strange because the Christmas Carol, to me personally, is not really an uplifting story during that part of it. It's not till the end, that A Christmas Carol like becomes a happy type story. So when he's dealing with like Christmas past, present, and future, it's quite depressing. So it's nice that this holly jolly man, that's where he comes from. From
I think a Christmas present is probably the least sad of the three.
yeah, I bet that movie's on every channel today or right now.
A Muppet Christmas Carol is the best version of a Christmas Carol, and I won't hear any arguments.
Actually, crucify me for this. I am not a huge fan of A Christmas Carol. Who would have thought?
I don't care as long as you agree that a Muppet Christmas Carol is the best version.
I think any version that a Muppet starts with is usually a pretty good version.
Oh yeah, yeah. Muppets, everything they touch is gold. Um, so I'm sure you're aware of Thomas Nast. So in 1863, he actually
Explain a little bit because I'm aware.
Thomas Nast was a very famous political cartoonist. I think he's actually the one who came up with the Republicans as elephants and Democrats as donkeys.
Yes, I think that is him.
Um, he actually created a lot of imagery that we still use today. And one of the things he did was he depicted Santa as fat, essentially.
Jolly.
Yeah, yeah, because usually depicted in various forms, and he'd had similar looks to that, but he was usually depicted as thin.
Right.
And Thomas Nast, here comes Bilbo, and Thomas Nast depicted him as plump, and bearded. But yeah, so he depicted him as bearded and plump. And that I think also stuck in the public mind as well because Thomas Nast was so famous for his imagery.
Right.
Um, and actually in other countries, you have different Christmas figures as well.
Right.
Um, so in some places they're just called, it's just Santa with a different name. Like you talked about the Dutch Santa Claus.
Yes.
In France, he's Père Noël. In China, and I'm going to screw this up because it doesn't have the accents on it that tells you the tone, but it's Sing Dan Lo Yan, which means Christmas old man.
Right
I'm
on.
like, all right, that's like descriptive enough.
Yeah, I think so. And then
Um,
there's also like the whole thing of like, is there a Mrs. Claus? Are there elves? Are there reindeer? Like Santa Claus has like his little pal Zwarte, Pete.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know exactly. She's like, I don't know how to put the accent on the Chinese, and I'm like, I can't say the most basic names, so here we are. And he's like Santa's helper. But I think to me, one of the most interesting things is that a lot of people have like a dark Santa or a dark Christmas figure.
Yeah.
Like
You say a
I,
lot of people, but it's usually the Slavs or the Germans.
right. So, like Krampus is
Yeah.
dark Christmas, and I think Krampus has become like quite a thing in the United States lately. Not that people believe in him, just as like something to entertain us.
Yeah, definitely.
I read that he kind of became known here after 2004 because they literally make like Krampus cards and all kinds of things that they send out. And yeah, they said Krampus comes from the Alpine region of Austria and has his origins in winter solstice. But I also read that like people dress as Krampus and chase children through town.
Well, yeah, he's like the anti-Santa, right? He
Yeah.
punishes the naughty children.
Yes, he punishes the naughty children and can drag them to hell. Which is like, I understand different cultural traditions, but I was trying to think of myself even right now. And if someone dressed as an evil Santa was chasing me anywhere, I'd probably just die.
Kind of like what was it, 2016 when people were dressing as clowns and just hanging out places to scare people?
Yes, I'm not really scared of clowns, but I also don't particularly care for clowns.
Well, I'm not scared of clowns either, but if I was driving on a dark, lonely road and there was a clown on the side of the road, I think I'd swerve to hit him.
Something
Like,
like that happened to me once. I was in Glasgow and I was walking home after work, so it was like 3:30 in the morning because I am stupidly fearless a lot of the time. Says this, after I said I would run from that, like I just do things like that. Anyway, so walking home, and it was right in front of my halls. I lived in a residence hall, and there was a guy that was walking like toward me on the other side of the street, and I looked at him, and he was wearing a mask, and I was like, oh, like what, like what do I do? So I like quickly turned into the halls, like not where I live, so I just had to walk down the middle and like ran. And it's bad if I'm running. I like ran all the way to my hall and I looked out the windows once I got in the building and he was gone. But I still walked home by myself after that though, so I mean,
so there is Krampus in Germany and those areas.
yes.
Um, Apparently in Spain and South America, the three kings are the ones who bring the presents.
Oh, just like in the song "We Three Kings," we three kings
Yes.
very gifts we've traveled so far.
And in Italy, La Befana, a kindly old witch gives sweets to good children and coal to bad children.
So I have never fully understood the coal tradition, because if you're quite poor, would coal not be like a really good gift to have
Right.
in like 1603? Would it not be good to get coal if you were like very poor?
Well, in A Muppet Christmas Carol, the rats get coal for Christmas to stoke the fire because they're cold.
Yeah. So I mean, is coal really that bad of a gift? I
I
mean,
don't know. I don't know. I am not really sure about the origins of coal.
I didn't really deeply look into that either. I was mostly when you said it, I was like, is that really a bad gift though? Uh,
Um, in Russia, a babushka or grandfather Frost deliver presents, and in Scandinavia, a tribe of gnomes deliver the gifts.
a tribe of gnomes.
A tribe of
So
gnomes.
now my question that I'd never thought of until just now: can you track these people on these other like news networks in other countries?
Probably not.
You need a gnome tracker. 10 out of 10.
My question is, so does that mean like Santa will skip these places because somebody else is handling it? Or do they get double presents?
Huh. That's an interesting question. And should we move to Scandinavia in order to see the gnomes?
Right,
Because
obviously.
I like the gnome idea, or even the babushka. Actually, I don't know.
I don't know if I want a babushka, like just.
Just hanging out in my house. But I
Yeah, I
did,
think out of all of those, I'll take the gnomes.
yes, the gnomes most definitely. So one thing I did kind of find interesting was how like the cultural depictions of Santa Claus were popping up everywhere. So in 1822, we get "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," which is still very popular today. I'm pretty sure that like most people in the English speaking world can tell you the beginning of that book.
Yes.
And then in 1841, there was actually a life-size Santa Claus in Philadelphia, and thousands of children went to meet him. And then in the 1890s, the familiar to Americans, Salvation Army Santas became a thing. But what they would do is they would have homeless men dress up as Santa to get donations. I'm not sure exactly where those donations went. I did not really delve too deeply into that. And then in 1924, the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade came about,
Oh.
and they have had a Santa Claus in that parade since its inception. But I think one of the most well-known things happened in the 1930s.
Wait. Let me guess. Let me guess.
Okay,
Does it have a red nose?
no.
Oh, then I don't know.
Coca-Cola, the ads, the Santa
Oh,
ads, those happened in the 1930s.
well, so did Rudolph.
Did he?
He was invented in 1939. Santa already had reindeer since the early 1800s, but he didn't have Rudolph until 1939. So the story of Rudolph was written to attract people to a certain department store chain. Um, it was set to music later, like 10 years later, like the song was made 10 years later. Here were the other name options for Rudolph. There were three:
Oh God.
Rollo, Reginald, or Rudolph. And the author's 4-year-old daughter liked Rudolph the best. And I'm like, thank you, 4-year-old girl.
Reginald, the red-nosed
I
reindeer.
know. Can you imagine?
That sounds.
Rollo, the red-nosed reindeer.
Oh, I do love those little candies, the Rolos. So I probably would have been on board for that. But I personally, my vote goes to Reginald, I think.
Reginald, the red-nosed reindeer.
Yes, he is fantastic.
I guess this was really before World War II took off too much because then you have famous uh, figures, Nazi figures named Rudolph. There were a couple, I think. Rudolf Hess, at least.
Yeah. Is that a very common name in Germany now, Rudolph?
I don't think so.
I can't see it being a very popular name anywhere. I was just curious.
I think it's kind of an old-fashioned name now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not as taboo as Adolf.
True.
I've never met a German named Rudolph.
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer / Reginald the Red-Nosed Reindeer is my jam.
So, I was also going to say that the origins of stockings by the fire actually comes from a story about Saint Nicholas, the historical figure.
Okay.
Um, Apparently, Saint Nicholas overheard a father and his three daughters lamenting that they didn't have enough money for food or clothing. Um, I've read in some versions of the stories, it was like the daughters were going to have to become prostitutes in order to get money. So he went home and got the inheritance that his parents left him and threw like nuggets of gold down their chimney. And it ended up in the stockings that were drying by the fire.
Oh.
So I guess nugget of gold is better than a nugget of coal.
Yeah, I would agree with that sentiment. Well, well, well. Saint Nicholas was a very upstanding man.
It seems a little extra that he climbed onto the roof of their house and threw that stuff down the chimney
That's true as well.
instead of just, putting it through their window or leaving it at the doorstep, knocking and running away.
Yeah, literally anything else.
Yeah. Like if he wanted to be anonymous, that's fine.
Well, do we have anything else on the history of Santa?
I did have an interesting fact.
Okay.
During the Civil War, the Unionists actually used an image of Santa frequently in their propaganda. And the Confederates, instead of trying to use Santa in their propaganda, started like bad talking Santa.
A
So
smear campaign.
yes, they created a smear campaign against Santa instead of just appropriating him for their propaganda. They called him a Dutch toymonger and a New England scrub who had nothing to do with Christmas.
Wow.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting political move for Santa.
Yeah, like let's just get mad at Santa.
Well, especially because it's children who care about Santa.
Yeah. Huh. That is that is a very strange move. Their minister of propaganda or whatever was
Yes.
just this side of good. Like
They obviously did not think that one through because to me it's Santa's for kids.
yeah, like it would go the opposite of your cause.
Yeah, just instead of smearing Santa, which is supposed to bring kids toys,
Yeah.
uh, then switch it around and just make Santa pro-Confederate.
Yeah, like Santa only brings toys to Confederate children.
Yeah, or something like that, or I'm sure they could have come up with something better than a New England scrub and a Dutch toymonger.
Right? Especially since New England was, I mean, what, like 30 minutes from the from the capital of the Confederacy in Richmond. I was like, is Virginia part of New England? No, but
No,
it's far. Like it's
no.
right across the river, the Potomac. Right? It's like right there.
Well, that's technically the Atlantic states, I think, Maryland and them.
Oh, is Maryland not part of New?
No. Pennsylvania, Maryland, New York, and them are all called like the Mid-Atlantic states.
Oh, still very
Delaware, New Jersey.
less than 24 hours. Like we're talking. It's
Well, I guess it depends on if you're on horseback or not, too.
true. And I mean, if you're like telling people in Mississippi that, it's a little bit different than telling like the people in Richmond, Virginia.
Well, and slurring him as Dutch seems weird, too. He's a
Yeah.
Dutch toymonger. When I feel like a lot of people all over the US have Dutch heritage.
Yeah, I guess maybe because like the Dutch like owned so much of like that top part of the country.
Right.
Oh, I can make myself sound just like I graduated the fifth grade and that's about it. But like that part of the country was New Amsterdam and whatnot.
Right, and Pennsylvania and a lot of those places were colonized by the Dutch, but
Yeah, originally, and then like became fully American. So
just I thought that was a really interesting take that they decided to smear campaign Santa.
yeah, it definitely is. Like that's not. I don't think that's a smart move on any part. But what do you do, right?
Yeah. So that's a fun fact about Santa.
I like it. I like it. Dutch toy monger from New England. It's really funny that they even back then that America was such like the center of the universe for them that they're like, well, he's American,
He's a New England scrub.
not like the myth of Santa Claus comes from anywhere else. Like, no, ew, from New England, gross.
Yeah, St. Nicholas was a Greek Orthodox bishop who lived in Turkey.
Yeah, so let's just go ahead and throw him right under the bus.
And so he's obviously a New England scrub.
Yeah, I think it makes perfect sense, really, but well, that's all I have about Santa. What about
Yeah,
you?
that's it.
Okay, well, guys, we hope that you have a Merry Christmas, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.